and a very warm welcome. I'm Nikki Clark, Chief Exec at Umi. Here at Umi, we're all about making it easier for businesses to do more and go further. And we do that by taking the hard work out of finding and using the best information expertise in finance. So far, we've worked with over 450,000 businesses across the UK, and our Make It Easier events are a great, but just one example of how we do that. If you haven't already done so, please go on and register for the Umi platform and mobile app. Think of it as the sat-nav for your business. Whether you know where you're going, but you need to find the best route, or you're really not sure where to head, we'll help you get there quicker and in better shape. Through the platform and app, we will keep you up to date on the things that will really make a difference to you and your business. Here's a short video that shows you how we do that. So, enough from me. Let's get on with making your life easier today by sharing with you our experience of how Microsoft productivity tools can help. I'm now going to leave you with Erin and Cherrelle. Erin will be making sure that all of your questions are covered, so please don't hold back. We really do want you to go away being able to make decisions and to take action. And Cherrelle will be taking you through an introduction to each of the tools. Enjoy!
Hi everyone, I'm Cherrelle and I'm delighted to be presenting today as we're on this mission to make it easier for businesses to do more and go further. So the session's all around Microsoft productivity tools. As you may know, there are quite a few tools out there. However, we are just focusing on 3 of them today as we do only have a short window, but try and think of this as more not just a training session, but just a general chit chat, and it's the perfect opportunity for you to ask questions. You can pop them in the Q&A section at any time, which will be monitored by Erin. And I will, of course, pause throughout the sessions to see if there are any questions from you. So just to get us started as a warm-up, I thought it would be good to do a quick poll to see if where you are on your journey. Are you using any particular Microsoft tools at the moment? Just so we can gauge where everyone is today. So the poll is, which Microsoft tools do you currently use within your business? Is that Microsoft Teams, OneDrive, or SharePoint? So Erin, if I can ask you to pop that poll up for me. And we'll just have a quick look to see what the results are so far. So we're definitely using Teams. I would be quite surprised with that, being honest, seeing with the whole transition from the pandemic if we weren't using Teams. I think it would be a little bit impossible if we weren't. I definitely know that we've definitely made that transition as a business, and it's one of those tools that I find really difficult to live without these days for sure. So thanks for that, really interesting results. There's 27% of you using SharePoint and 27% of you using OneDrive. So hopefully what I'll be able to do today is take you through an introduction to SharePoint and OneDrive along with Teams and give you some top tips for you to take away and try and implement within your business. So on that note, I am going to share my screen. Don't worry, it's not death by PowerPoint, and there is a lot of demo going to be happening today. So if you do have these apps, please feel free to follow along and take some notes to take away with you to try and implement them in your business in the future. So Erin, I'm going to share my screen. Will you let me know if you can see that for me, please?
Yeah, I'll give you a shout, Cherrelle. Can you hear us?
I can, yes.
Got you. One sec.
So hopefully you can see that, Erin.
Yep, we've got that on the screen now, Cherrelle.
Perfect. So the agenda for today is I'm going to talk to you about SharePoint and OneDrive. We're going to have a short break just after 11. Then we're going to move on to Microsoft Teams, and then there is a networking opportunity for you to end the sessions today. As I previously said, feel free to ask your questions as we go along, and Erin will just shout up when we do have one. So just a recap on the objectives and what we're looking to achieve today is for you to some takeaways is for you to work smarter with features that you didn't know about, help speed things up with templates, hints and tips. I think a lot of us just get lost in the world of Microsoft thinking, how can I make this a little bit more efficient for myself on a day-to-day basis? We want to give you a little bit more information around collaboration, how to do that more effectively and efficiently from any location, which is what Microsoft's all about in the cloud, and then to take it to the next level and learn what's possible. There's nothing wrong with pushing the boundaries. I think one of the things that I'm always really passionate about is that you'll never learn unless you try. But if you do try, that's great. And if it's not for you, there is normally other features and options for you to implement across your business and how you work on a day-to-day basis. So, Microsoft. I thought it would be useful just to kind of kick off the session with a little bit more about Microsoft. I think it's really helpful for you to always take a step back and identify why you use Microsoft and is it the right tool for you as a business? And the answer is only you will know that. But I thought it would be useful to give you a quick summary of the benefits that I personally find and in our business as to why we use Microsoft. So it's cloud-based, fully cloud-based. As you know, we're transitioning, everything's moving to the cloud. We used to have these huge server rooms, comms rooms, and we are definitely in that transition to the cloud. A lot of businesses have already done it. And what it unlimited gives you is that anytime access from multiple devices, whether that be your phone, your laptop, your iPad, and just having that on-demand service really does allow us to make more use of our time effectively. What I really do love about Microsoft as well is that there's a roadmap, it's forever updating, and it's real powerful, exciting concepts in the pipeline. Integration is key, and they're definitely trying to streamline apps to enable us to navigate it more effectively. There is also options to do cost savings. So if you do sign up to a business account, you can choose your subscription. I think what a lot of businesses are doing at the moment, because we have transitioned to that digital world, and there's app and software for everything that you can think of these days, is trying to streamline that within your business. If you find yourself in a bit of a pickle thinking, well, I'm using Microsoft as well as Google, as well as these old systems, just take a step back and try and streamline your software where possible. And integration is really common these days. And just remember, we're trying to make our lives a little bit better, a little bit easier, and reduce that admin where possible, and be more productive, which then also in kind returns for us to be a little bit more open-minded, creative, and maybe try and focus our attention on things that we never really get the time to focus the attention on. And one of the other good things is it is super secure. You don't need to worry about it. It's got protection with your malware, your viruses. It's got your encryption. It's ISO 27001 certification. So there is so much support and security around the Microsoft tools, and you don't need access to VPN. And I know that is sometimes a barrier for some businesses whilst working within their network. So that was a little bit about Microsoft. I think one of the things that I really do like about Microsoft as well at the moment is you can obviously have a free account. So if it's a personal account, you can sign up, whether that's through your Outlook or your Hotmail, and you can get access to quite a lot of the things that you would normally pay for as a business. You can get access to a OneDrive and a Teams. Of course, they will try and upgrade you and obtain further features, apps, functions, and give you a little bit additional storage. But I think it's just a great addition to small businesses who are trying to make that transition into the Microsoft world, where it's a little bit more affordable and you can trial it at the same time. So hopefully that just gives you a quick rundown of as to why we use Microsoft, and I think it's a great software to use. So this diagram, we will come back to it later on in the session, but I think it just quickly illustrates what we are trying to achieve today. So OneDrive, Teams and SharePoint all integrate with one another, and people do sometimes struggle with that, and I can get why, but hopefully by the end of this session you'll realise how they integrate with one another and how you can navigate, and you know where to go for the information at some point. So try not to forget that slide, and as I say, we will come back to that at some point. So to move on, we're going to start with SharePoint. I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time on SharePoint. It is a bit of a beast, and a lot of businesses do have a dedicated person to work with SharePoint of how they want to implement it in their business. But I'll take you through some of the top tips, where to look for some of the information, and then hopefully you will ask any questions that you may have in relation to it. So just exit that. And then Erin, hopefully, can you let me know if you can see my SharePoint at all?
We can see your screen share, yeah.
Cool. Are there any questions at this stage before I kind of dive into the detail?
Yeah, we've got one that's came in already. Someone's just asked, saying that they work on a Mac, so will this information be useful to them? Can you use Microsoft on a Mac?
You can, yes, and there are additional features for Macs. In their roadmap, I will come on to it. I'll show you an example in Teams a bit later on, but in their roadmap, they're quite specific if the update isn't related to Macs, because some of the options and features are a little bit constrained, but it is in their roadmap to make sure that everybody has the same functions and features, regardless of the fact of the device that they do use. But yes, it is relevant to Mac. Okay. Right, so let's start with SharePoint. So what I'm in now is SharePoint, and what I've done is I've logged into Office 365. For those who are not comfortable or familiar with Office 365, it literally is you sign into Office 365 using your credentials, and then you're taken to kind of a home page. And then what you've got, depending on your subscription, is a view of all the different apps that you've got available. And the one that we're focusing on is SharePoint, which is here on the left hand side with a green icon with the S in the middle. So if I just come to SharePoint, this is the home screen, and then within the home screen you've got a few different options. So it is mainly used for business as an intranet and a document storage solution. An intranet is where you normally pull all the information together through multiple apps, and it presents the information in different formats, which could be news sites, web pages and alerts. But predominantly the amount of businesses use it for document storage. So we've massively transitioned from the pandemic, from printing off documents and storing them in a file in a filing cabinet, and now we really solely depend on using Microsoft tools such as SharePoint to optimize the digital solution, where we need to save time and obtain that information on demand service by accessing the cloud. And another question that I get all the time is, well, why do I need to use SharePoint? As I previously said, it is a cloud storage solution. So what that means is you can access it anywhere, anytime. It stores version history. It's in one location. It allows you to collaborate. We've got group permissions, so you can really alter and refine the permissions that you want to share with folk that you're granting access to. You may have been in a position before in the past where you've been working on a file, you've saved it to your desktop, and let's say you're on a train to a business meeting and all of a sudden the laptop goes dead. You haven't got your charger with you and you really need that file and you just can't access it. Whereas if you're saving it into the cloud, that means that you've got anytime access. And that's a great example as to why you can use SharePoint. So just going back to the landing page that we're in at the moment, hopefully you can just follow, you can see my cursor, but in the top left hand corner we've got following. So when you are invited to a SharePoint site, that will be done by your administrator or the owner of the particular site. And you'll get a notification, normally via your email if you use Outlook, and you'll be invited to that site. The owner will decide on what permissions that you have, but what you need to do when you come in, when you click on that email, is basically click there to follow that site. And the way that you can do that is just kind of, if you can see this little star here on the tile, you can click on that and it'll tell you to follow, or you can stop following at any particular time. And hopefully you can see the colours of the stars will change colour depending on if you're following it or not. So as you can see, I'm following a few different sites, and then that is a very quick navigation in the top left hand corner. Then underneath, what you've got is your recent, so anything that you're accessing on a daily basis, you will be able to see that. And then another feature which I really like is the option to add your own featured links. So if you are accessing external systems on a daily basis, whether that be a finance system or just you're logging in to check some activity or the BBC News, what you can do is just create a shortcut. So at the moment, I've created a nice little shortcut here for my OneDrive, but you can just literally click on edit, and then you can say add, and then all you're doing is copying and pasting in the URL to SharePoint, and then you just say, well, what do you want to give it a name? So what's the label of this particular one? So I'll just call that the home page. And you've got this little option here about hiding it in SharePoint on the mobile app if you want to do that. And then you just click save, and then you're away with that. So I'm just going to refresh my screen. I've got an error message there, so just hoping that's something to do with connection. So you can create as many featured links as you want. It's very similar to using your favorites within your browser, whether you use Google Chrome or Edge. It's just, again, trying to save you time on that navigation. So along the top in the middle here in the real estate, we've got news from sites. You can create news from multiple sites, whether that's a change pending or you've just got really good information to share. You can just create a news post, but that is mainly focused on the intranet side of things, whereas today I'm kind of focusing on the document storage solution things that you'll probably use within a day-to-day basis. Okay, so what we call these is tiles or containers, and what you can see very quickly here is the name of the site. If it's a group, which more than likely it will be a group, and then a very quick overview of what's going on within that particular site. So you can see if you've modified anything, if you created, what's popular, and then you can just hover over the information to get a little bit more detail within that. So for example, if I click into SharePoint now, I'm taken into the Microsoft Productivity Training SharePoint site, and then what you can see here in the middle is the news page, and that's kind of where it houses all the relevant information of what's going on within the site. You can amend it, you can use the templates, it's entirely up to you of how you want to do that. So the area that we will be focusing on today is the document section. Now there is this little small section here on the right hand side of the documents, which is out of the box, and you can have a little preview, but you can see that it's quite constrained when it comes to the sizing and what information is shown in that view. Whereas if you navigate to documents on the left hand side, you will get a bigger picture, which is just a little bit easier to navigate, and then you're not restricted at all. So what we've got here is multiple files and folders within SharePoint. To do that, it's literally you click a button of new and you choose a folder. So I can call this folder Wednesday, for example, and click create. Now what that's done is that's put it into the list. So as you can see that I've created it, and then it's got a little bit of a ping over the top on the Wednesday to say I'm new, and that's all that it's indicating. Now what you can do is, depending on your style, if you like your folders structure, if you like just a list of information, whether you like to scroll and scroll and scroll, you can do that. It's entirely up to you. The only thing that I would say is just try and be structured. So if you have multiple SharePoint sites across your business, maybe try and perhaps implement a protocol so everybody knows where to look for the information, as everybody's brain works completely different. So trying to find the information and what it's maybe called can be a little bit difficult at times. But what you can do is drag and drop the information at any particular time into folders if you like everything to be neat and tidy, or you can simply click on it and then you can also have the option to move it. So once I'm clicked on it, it's gone grey and it's represented by a little grey tick here. And then what I'm going to do is choose the ellipsis with just 3 little dots, and then we're going to choose the option to move to. And then based on where you want to move it to, it will give you the option of where you can move it to. So you can move it from a SharePoint to another SharePoint location. You can move it from a SharePoint to your OneDrive. It's entirely up to you. But you will literally just choose a location and say move here. And that's another way that you can move your documentation. Other features within SharePoint that I wanted to take over you quite quickly is, obviously, if there's a lot of files and folders within SharePoint, it can be a little bit daunting, as I say, to try and find that right information. If you're accessing a particular document or a particular file all the time, what my recommendation to you is to choose that and then to pin it to the top. So as you can see on the top here is that we've got Summer Festival. As you can see, I think I do love a bit of planning, and so looking forward to the summer and get rid of this cold weather. But what we can do is just define what we want to be at the top. So you literally simply click on that and say to the top. And if you did want to edit the pin, you can get back to that very, very quickly. You can move it to the right, or you can unpin it if you wanted to do that. So again, you would just click on the file and folder that you want to select, and then you would choose the option to pin, which is at the top here along the ribbon. And that really does work quite well for everybody, because I think a lot of people get daunted about the amount of information in SharePoint, thinking, where am I going to look for this data? I have no idea where to look. So that is a great top tip. The other top tip that I want to share with you is, a lot of people don't know that it's here, but under the new tab facility, you've got something here called a link. If you click on the link, what you can do is define a shortcut. So if it's a website that you're always accessing, if it's another system, you can literally just take the URL and then pop it into there and give it a name again, and then it's created. And then what you've done is you've put all the information into one place where you can very quickly get to that information. Now, a lot of people say, well, it's at the bottom, how do I make it to be at the top? And the way that you would do that is by clicking on the modified, dropping that down, and then choosing the option of newer to older. So then it changes your view. You get to decide, you get to see what's new, what's been accessed, what's been modified, and you can very quickly get to it. And as you can see here, it's a few seconds ago modified by the SharePoint demo user. So that is another really good top tip within SharePoint. Within SharePoint, again, what you'll see in this session is a lot of the features and functions are relevant to SharePoint and OneDrive. They've just got a different user interface. So just bear that in mind as we go through this section of this session, I should say. The other option within SharePoint are in the top right hand corner, you've got a few different options here. So you've got the list view, so if you like in a list view, the compact view, and then the tile view. So again, this is about how you want to navigate as a person and kind of really save that time instead of kind of looking for that information 24/7. So as you can see here, I'm on the tile view and I want to have a look at all documents, but then you can create your own custom view as well. So if you are in a SharePoint and it's got reams of information, create your own view, and then restrict that view down. And it's really simple to do that. It's just by clicking on that create new view, and then you can give yourself, give it a name, and choose how you want that to be visually appeared, and then if you want to make it public or private or not. So that's quite good. The other option is filtering. So if you want to filter by a particular document, whether it be a URL or another document, make sure that you're using the filter. But the filters, I think in time may become redundant as the search functionality within Microsoft itself, they've extended to an index search. So that just doesn't just search your file names, your file types, it'll search the contents of your overall files as well, making it easier for you to locate that file. But as I say, that option is there, and with the filters, what you've also got is the dates timed here, or if you want to choose specific dates of when the activities happened, or by a particular person and file type. Erin, I'm just going to pause there. Are there any questions at this point?
Yeah, we've got a couple in. So one of them is, if I share a document on SharePoint with somebody externally, can they edit that document?
Yes. So if we take a step back when it comes to permissions within SharePoint, Microsoft has 3 basic permissions. One, you've got the owner of the site, and so they will decide who has access to it. And then they'll give member access to another person, which is normally within the organisation. So, for example, I would be the owner of the site. I could then invite Erin as a member, and then we've got the next level down, which is either known as a visitor or a guest. So in the top right hand corner, as you can see here, it says that it's a private group. I'm following it, and then we've got 4 members. If we click on those members, this is where you can see that I'm the owner, and then my colleagues, Erin, Stephen, and SharePoint Demo are actually members. Now you can remove them for the group at any particular time. So we can restrict that access. So if I just drop that down and then I say, right, actually, I am going to remove Stephen from the group, I remove him from the group. So with the permissions, the owner has overall permissions to do what they want. They can create, they can delete, they can rename, they can edit, they can share. Whereas the member, you can restrict those permissions down. And with the guest, what you can either do is invite them to the overall site of SharePoint. However, I would query that, whether you want to do that. If you're in a SharePoint site, it's normally around a specific topic, subject, project. What you need to do is define what information you want to share with somebody externally, decide on the confidentiality, the kind of the protection that you want to have within that data, and then you would choose to only maybe perhaps give them access to a folder or a file. So the way that you would do that, there is multiple ways, and again, this is the same within your OneDrive. What you're looking for is this universal arrow, which indicates that you can share it with an individual. So for example, if I chose the file stream, I click on that particular row, you've got a few different options. You can use it along the top, or you've got share, or you can use this little universal icon here in the row, or you can indeed just click the ellipsis and hit share there. Now, if I click share, what I'm doing is I'm sharing the folder. I'm not sharing the entire site because I've chosen a particular folder. But if you want to choose a particular file within the folder, that's possible as well. So it really depends on your structure, like implement, and what information that you want to share with that particular individual. So all you would do is click on there. Now, this container will pop up. It'll look the same throughout SharePoint and OneDrive. And then what you're doing is saying that you're going to send the link to a particular person. You've got this little option here, and I don't know if anyone quickly saw that, but it says people you specify can edit, but you have got different options here. So when you're sharing a link or a file, or even your site from SharePoint, you get to decide on the permissions. So are you wanting them to edit? Do you want them to block that edit? Do you want them to download the information? You get to decide. So if I just quickly simulate that again, I'm going to say I'm going to give that to Erin, and then I'm going to basically define if I want to give her edit rights. And so you can see there, the pencils quickly got crossed through it to say, well, Erin can only view on this particular occasion. And then what I can do is just hit send. So if you imagine Erin was an external person, they would get an email saying, Cherrelle's invited you to view this information or edit the information, or indeed give them the collaboration rights. So yes, you can give external people access to your SharePoint site. Just ask yourself the question, do you want to give them access to everything? Can they break anything? Would anything be jeopardized? or do you want to really just create a folder and give them access to what they need to, and then it's completely restricted down? Okay, Erin, was there any other questions at all?
Yep, we've got a couple. So,
perhaps Nate, stop talking as well.
How easy is it for me to check that I have set up the right permissions on a SharePoint site?
Okay, so there's a few different ways that you can do that. When you're in the top right hand corner, you've got these permissions and you can check that information. So you've got member, owner and remove from group. And then what you've also got is this little cog in the top right hand side, in the top right hand corner. And then you've got site permissions. So it'll expand this little container out, and now try not get bogged down in the terminology that they use. But as you can see here, Microsoft Productivity Trainer owners have full control, and that's exactly what it means. Limited, what you can do is just hover over the little I button and it'll tell you what they can do. So members are I, so you can view and edit, and then your visitors have no control. So that would be a very quick way in how you check their permissions. A top tip that I would say is, if you're unsure, send it to your personal email address and give it a go. Or before you hit that enter button or return button, just ask one of your colleagues to say, do you think I've given them the right access to information? And can you check that? And then also down here, you can see if you've got your guests, if the access is going to expire in any particular way, shape or form. Now there is another option for advanced permission settings, but if I very quickly click on that, you get a different view, which is what we know as the classic view in SharePoint. And then you can drill down into those permissions, and then you can also check their permissions in there. But if being honest, I would try and keep to the structure that SharePoint's given you of owners, members, visitors and guests, and just do it that way. So hopefully that answers that question. Erin, any further questions?
Yeah, we've got one more as well, just on SharePoint. So how many SharePoint sites should I have within my business?
Okay, that is entirely up to you and your business. What I would say is it's all based on the information that you've got within your SharePoint site. A lot of businesses do try and segment that information. So whether that's you've got a SharePoint site for your HR, a SharePoint site for your payroll, a SharePoint site for your finance, just make sure that you're kind of locking that information down based on the rationale for it. So if it is something about your HR employee records, you obviously don't want anybody else to say that within the business apart from a select few people, whether that be your HR manager. So I would try and segment the data as much as possible, and then overlay the permissions on your SharePoint just to make sure that you can sleep at night. I know that might sound really daft, but that is something that you can get caught up on, just over analysing what should I do, how should I do it. I think with SharePoint as well is, if in doubt, if it doesn't really sit within that frame or topic or project, just ask yourself, would it be easier in a different SharePoint? More than likely, yes. Who would I need to invite? Think of it as an extension at your house. I'm going to go and build this new room. This is how I want to decorate it. This is where I want it located. And this is the only people that I want in that room. So it's entirely up to you and your business of how you want to segment that. But there are no limits in terms of SharePoint sites. Just remember that, try and implement that structure. Try and make sure that you're not giving yourself a lot of admin work to do, whether you need that SharePoint modification or that administrator to make sure that you're kind of driving home the right structure and the right best practices for you and your business. So what we try and do as a business, make sure that we're always sharing that. So there's a top tip on this particular SharePoint that worked really well. Do you want to implement that on your SharePoint at the same time? And then what you can do is then create templates within SharePoint if you want to do that. Okay, so we're on 10 to 11, and we've got quite a little bit to get through before our break. So hopefully I've answered quite a lot of questions on SharePoint and share with you the top tips that I really wanted to. I think a few more things before I did do that is, if you're in a particular folder and you need to go back, a lot of people don't know that this is clickable. It's called the breadcrumb trail within SharePoint. You can, so if you're quite deep in terms of your breadcrumb trail and your audit trail within your documents, you can, instead of just using your back button, go back a step, which will save you quite a lot of time as well. So if I'm in a particular file, it's in the online version, I'll click out of that, and if I want to go back, I would just go back to the documents on my breadcrumb trail. And what I would also say is try and get in the habit of sharing links instead of downloading the information and uploading it into your emails. A lot of people, if you've got access to the particular SharePoint site, or again, if you just want to really restrict the access to a particular file, say for example, I will go in here and I've got, let's have a look. Where is it? I just literally just come across it there. I think I was in Stream. No, it wasn't. I'm maybe in Fitness. I've got a PDF here. I would click on the three little dots, the ellipsis, and then what I'm going to do is copy the link. So if I'm copying the link, there you can see here in the bottom, again, people with existing access can use the link. And what they mean by existing is who's got access to the overall SharePoint or that folder or that file. You can click on that and change it and say, actually, I just want specific people to have read-only access. You can pop that in there, and then you can block them from downloading that information as well. You hit apply, copy that link, and then send it to them in a Teams chat. Instead of downloading that information, putting it in an email, and then before you know it, you're in for a whole load of nightmares around version control. So that is something else that I would try and get you to do, is direct them to the location where you want them to be in the SharePoint and invite them to do that whole collaboration piece. And we'll come on to version control in a second with OneDrive. But that really does save time, and it really does open up that option for everyone to have an input. Okay, and I think I'm going to leave it there with SharePoint, unless there are any other further questions, but we can always come back to it at any time. Erin, I'm sure you'll shout up if we do have anything.
Yeah, we're all good for now. So it's fine.
Thank you. Okay, so that is a whistle-stop tour of SharePoint. Hopefully you found that quite useful. And I'm just going to flip over to OneDrive now. So I'm in my OneDrive, as you can see in the top right-hand corner, it's got OneDrive, and it's telling me that I'm in my OneDrive. It's got SharePoint demo, because this is a demo site. If it was me as an individual, it would say Cherrelle Ord. So this is your homepage of your OneDrive. And a lot of the questions that I get asked is, well, why do I need to use OneDrive instead of SharePoint? OneDrive is your personal account. It's your Microsoft version of your Dropbox, your Google Drive. Just remember, the permissions are done individually, whereas SharePoint can be managed by a group unless you want to drill down to a certain file or folder and give them access to that permission. I think from a personal view on OneDrive is anything that I'm working on, working in progress, draft version, I will always do it in my OneDrive before I put it in SharePoint. And then once it's kind of signed off, or I want people to collaborate on it, that's when I would put it in SharePoint. And like I said earlier, the same features and functions, it's Microsoft. It's not here to confuse you, it's here to streamline it. And if you've cracked SharePoint, you definitely cracked your OneDrive, and vice versa. So in OneDrive, you were logged in here. Left-hand side is your files. So if you want to create files, folders, it's entirely up to you. You can scroll and scroll and scroll. I'm a neat, tidy person. I like things to be in folders. The only thing that I would say is the URL character limit. If you've got a folder within a folder and a folder and a folder, and you've got lots of long names, whether that's quality statement, January 2022, that will contribute to the URL in your OneDrive. So for example, if I go into a particular document here, so I'm in confidential, Charlotte Royal, which is just a fake employee, 1-to-1 December, what I'm going to draw your attention to here is the URL along the top. So as you can see that I'm in the SharePoint, because it is driven by SharePoint. You're in your personal OneDrive, it'll tell you who you're logged in as. So if somebody's sharing a document with you, it'll have their name instead of your name. And then you will be able to see that the URL will get longer. So just be mindful if you are going to go down the route of folders and folders and folders, that it can affect the URLs, which is 255 characters within that. And again, you've got your breadcrumb trail, so you can very quickly go back in time on that breadcrumb trail. Okay, you've got the same functionality. You've got your new, you've got your links. So if you are accessing SharePoint quite often, you've got your quick access on the left-hand side. But if there's a file within that particular SharePoint that you've got to navigate to that SharePoint and click on that file, then click on another file, just add the URL as a link and add it to your favorites, where it'll appear here. So for example, I'm always accessing a particular URL from our website. Instead of opening up a new tab, typing in We Are Umi, looking for it, I've literally just copied and pasted the link and I've put it into my OneDrive, so I can very quickly access it from that. So create a shortcut, be clever with things. If you are in a SharePoint and you want to, there's a few different ways you can do that. You can link it to your OneDrive, or you can just use the link. So I'll very quickly show you that within the SharePoint site. And this is where you can kind of start to see it all come together. It just speeds up a little bit. In here, so I've just clicked the Microsoft Productivity Training SharePoint. You've got the fitness folder. Next to the universal SharePoint icon, you've got this little folder with a link, if you like. It says add shortcut to your OneDrive. Use that as much as you possibly can. Click on that link. It'll tell you that that'll be added to your OneDrive, and then you can very quickly go to your OneDrive and navigate to your OneDrive. I've just got an error message again. Let's just see if it does that. Oh, this folder's already included in your OneDrive. So I click on that, and then you can see that it's there. Now, it's not duplicating the information, it's creating a shortcut in your files. So there's fitness, and I can access it very, very quickly via your OneDrive. And then that saves you going from your OneDrive to your SharePoint and vice versa. So you can use that option as well. I know that I showed you this in the SharePoint, but again, you've got the option to drill it down by, do you want the files to be in a particular order, modified by, do you want to filter it by a particular person? How do you like to view the information? Do you want it in a list, a compact list, a tile? You get to decide on that view and what works best for you. And then you can filter it again, as we've discussed, and drill it down. Most of the time, you know what you're looking for. You just can't remember how that information is being shared with you. So what I would do is come into the shared section, any information that's being shared with you and then shared by you. So if you know that you've shared a document, it's going to be in here and it's being shared from your OneDrive, and you can see the type of document. If you hover over it, it'll tell you if you've had a conversation about it, whether that's been in Microsoft Teams, which you can see here, and you can see who's viewed it as well. So there's always kind of some insight as to, I sent you that document, did you read it? Yes, of course I did. You can see that information in your OneDrive if you do share it that way. And then you can also click on the details and it'll tell you a little bit more information about it, and then who indeed has access to it. And I think that's one of the things with OneDrive is if you're not in that habit of taking that information from your OneDrive and moving it to SharePoint, you can forget who's got access to what. And what you can do very quickly is come in and have a look to see who's got access. And then you can stop sharing access. So that'll stop sharing access with everybody, or you can drill it down to a particular person and say, you know what, I'm going to stop sharing that with Cherrelle, and I'll remove that from Cherrelle's view. So she won't get a notification to say, oh, this document's being stopped shared with you. It'll just no longer be in her view. So that is the way that you can use the option that's being shared by. And again, you've got the same options along the top, manage access. If you are in shared and things have, you've shared the documents, you can kind of filter down into the document that you think that you sent. You think, oh, I've definitely shared this PDF and I've definitely shared it with Erin. And this will look up to your Active Directory and it'll tell you, well, you actually haven't. If you unclick the PDF, have you shared anything with Erin? And it'll tell you exactly what you've shared and how that's being shared. And just a quick note there, Microsoft Teams chat files. You will come on to that in a second, but what a lot of people don't realise is when you're using Microsoft Teams, that it backs up into your OneDrive if it's a chat. Okay, so you can use the filters, the set filter option indeed, and then you've got your recycle bin. Just a pointer here, your recycle bin is only for 30 days, so make sure that you keep it on top of this, and if you have deleted anything, try and restore it at any particular time, which you can do just by clicking on the particular option and hitting restore. But that will kind of get replenished every 30 days, and then you can just keep on top of that is probably what I would say. The search functionality is brilliant. It's definitely kind of a game changer for me, especially when you've got so many things that you're looking after within a business, and as yourself, you're in one meeting from a particular topic to the next, and you try to just find the information is quite difficult. And I've definitely made a transition as a person, not to share everything via email and try and reside it within the Microsoft productivity world. So for example, if I'm going to conduct a search on anything, if I just type in maybe Friday, it'll tell me if there's any results. You can say show results, and what I'll draw you to is where it says all files. You can really refine that down. So all files, what it's doing is sharing everything that I've ever had access to across SharePoint, across OneDrive, and across Teams. So it's looking globally for everything that I'm looking for. And as you can see, I can get quite caught up in a lot of this data here. But again, use the My Files. So if it's a file that you're looking for within your OneDrive, and you think, I have no idea where I put that. Is it a file within a file? Is it in somebody else's OneDrive? Just type in the word, choose the option for My Files, and then you've got show more results. And then what it'll do is it will drill that results down for you, and it'll even tell you the location. So if you thought, oh, that's where it is, you can go back to your documents and then work through it that way if you really preferred, or you can very quickly just click through it and it will take you to that particular location. So that is using the search functionality. It's the same search functionality, as I said, through SharePoint and OneDrive. Erin, I've gone off on a tangent again. Bring me in. Have we got any questions?
Yeah, we've got a couple. So the first one is, when collaborating on OneDrive, if we are all editing one version of a document, can I retrieve an older version of it?
You surely can. So let's take quality standards here as an example. If I hover over it, you can see again who's viewed it, how many times that you potentially edited it. So what you need to do is click on the ellipsis, the three little dots, and what we're looking for is the option of version history. Same in SharePoint as your OneDrive. Click on your version history and it'll tell you how many times that's been saved. So another top tip, maybe hit your auto save or maybe take it off. It's entirely up to you. But if you haven't got your auto save on, make sure that you do save it. But yes, if you are collaborating, say this was on version 16, you had 3 different people collaborating on the document, you would literally click on the document, whether that be Microsoft Word or PowerPoint, have a look at it, and then say, oh yeah, that document, I definitely need to retrieve it, and then it'll give you the option to roll that document back. So you'll get a full version history in here of what's being saved, and try not to panic too much where you can retrieve the original version history. That option is there, and it's across the documents that you work on, which is Word, PowerPoint, OneNote, Forms in Excel, etc. Okay. Any other questions?
Perfect, yeah. And one of the ones, just what's the best way to share a document from OneDrive?
The best way to share a document, I would say a link, or using the built-in functionality within your OneDrive. So for example, if I go onto this particular image here, use the global functionality, use the little arrow there, choose the person that you want to send it to, and then type in a message. Remember, do you want to give them edit access? Do you not? Do you want to block the download so they don't take your IP? And then you can hit apply. And what that'll do is it'll take a copy. You can copy that into a Teams chat, or you can actually just pop that into an email as well. But I would definitely do the link version instead of downloading a copy, opening up your emails and attaching it as an email, because you're giving them a version which is not essentially the correct version. It's a version of that moment in time because you've downloaded it, and what you want to do is collaborate and give them the most up-to-date version at any given time. And the best way to do that is via the link. But you've got the same option at the top, the share option there. You've got the ellipsis, share again, and then you've got the option there of copy the link. It's all exactly the same. There's just different ways of doing it, and it's entirely up to you and your preference. But my recommendation is the links. Okay. Any more questions, Erin?
No, that's all for now, Cherrelle.
Okay. I'm just conscious of time, so I know that we would jump to a break. Obviously, if I've missed anything from OneDrive or SharePoint, I'll try and incorporate that into Teams a little bit later on, and just go through a few more points. But we're going to hand over to a break now, I believe, Erin?
Yep, yeah, that's perfect. We'll catch everyone back at 1:15. It's just about 10 minutes. Thanks, everyone.
Perfect. See you then.